What if everything audiences believed about the Golden Girls was built on carefully guarded secrets? Rue McClanahan, the woman who brought Southern Belle Blanche Devereaux to life for 7 unforgettable seasons, spent her final years pulling back the curtain on one of television's most beloved shows. From explosive backstage feuds to casting decisions that nearly derailed the entire production, the truth behind that Miami kitchen table was far more complicated than the cheesecake and laughter suggested. Before she died in 2010, McClanahan left behind revelations that continue to reshape how the world understands this landmark series. But here's where it gets strange. The roles everyone knows so well almost went to completely different people. Few television decisions carry as much weight in hindsight as the one that almost put Betty White in the role of Blanche Devereaux and Rue McClanahan in the chair where Rose Nylund would sit. When The Golden Girls was being assembled in 1985, producers had a specific vision for each character. That vision did not initially match the actresses most audiences now associate with those roles. According to McClanahan herself in a Television Academy Foundation interview, she was originally expected to audition for Rose Nylund, the sweet and slightly naive Midwestern widow. Betty White was being considered for the role of Blanche, the flirtatious Southern belle. The logic seemed straightforward. White had spent years on the Mary Tyler Moore Show playing Sue Ann Nivens, a character known for her overt sexuality and romantic pursuits. Producers assumed she could step naturally into Blanche's stilettos. McClanahan recalled reading the script and feeling an immediate pull toward Blanche. She described knowing with certainty that the role was hers. When her agent informed her that the part was earmarked for White, McClanahan pushed back hard. She told her agent she could not imagine playing Rose. Her agent made the stakes clear. Take Rose or walk away from the show entirely. That ultimatum sat uneasily with McClanahan, who had already sensed that the series was going to be something special. What they found next, nobody expected. When McClanahan went in to read for director Jay Sandrich, something unexpected happened. Sandrich asked her to try reading Blanche's lines on the spot. She agreed immediately, and the results made the decision almost irreversible. Days later, both White and McClanahan were called in together and asked to read the opposite roles from their original assignments. The chemistry that emerged from that session was undeniable. McClanahan as Blanche and White as Rose felt complete in a way that the original arrangement simply never would have. McClanahan later admitted she never found her footing with the Rose character at all. She described feeling lost when trying to inhabit that particular kind of gentle innocence. She reflected with honesty that performing Rose for 8 seasons would have been genuinely difficult for her. That candid admission says a great deal about how much of Blanche came from a place of authentic understanding rather than simply technical acting. Betty White, for her part, was initially unenthusiastic about the role swap. But she came to embrace Rose fully and later expressed admiration for the direction McClanahan took Blanche. She said McClanahan took the character to places White herself would never have had the confidence to explore. 2 careers were defined by a single afternoon decision made in a casting room. McClanahan spent years reflecting on how narrowly the show's entire dynamic had come to its iconic shape. And that's when everything nearly fell apart, but why? The significance of this casting truth stretches beyond mere trivia. The Golden Girls premiered on NBC on September 14, 1985. It became one of the most decorated sitcoms in American television history, earning 65 Emmy nominations and 11 wins across its 7-season run. That extraordinary achievement rested on an ensemble chemistry that was nearly configured in a completely different direction. McClanahan understood that, and the weight of it was something she carried with genuine appreciation. The show she almost didn't shape into its final form became the defining achievement of her professional life. With the casting foundation now in clear view, what unfolded behind the cameras once production began tells an even more complex story about the women who made that show what it was. Strip away the scripted warmth and coordinated performances, and what emerges is a portrait of real human friction that never fully disappeared. The answer will surprise you. The kitchen table in the Miami house where Dorothy, Rose, Blanche, and Sophia gathered over cheesecake became television's most recognizable gathering place. On screen, those four women represented friendship at its most enduring and most generous. Off-screen, the picture was considerably more complicated. Rue McClanahan held a unique vantage point on all of it because she sat directly between the two strongest personalities in the cast. McClanahan wrote about the dynamic in her 2007 memoir, My First Five Husbands, and the Ones Who Got Away. She described the relationship between B. Arthur and Betty White with diplomatic but telling language. She stated that she loved both women deeply and found tremendous joy in working alongside each of them. She also acknowledged that their relationship with each other was never what she had hoped it could be. That measured phrasing coming from a woman known for her directness speaks volumes about how charged the atmosphere between Arthur and White truly was. The tension between those two actresses became one of the worst-kept secrets in Hollywood by the time the series ended. At a 40th anniversary event for the show held in June 2025, co-producer Marsha Posner Williams confirmed the feud openly. She offered the now famous assessment that the two women could not have warmed up to each other even under the most extreme circumstances. But here's where it gets even stranger. Other members of the production team offered various theories about the root cause. Some pointed to the fact that White consistently received more audience applause during tapings. Others noted that Arthur deeply resented the way White would break character mid-scene to interact with the live studio audience. Arthur was known for staying fully committed to Dorothy during every taping. When White would pause to acknowledge the crowd or throw out an improvised remark, it disrupted the rhythm Arthur considered essential to the work. That difference in approach extended deeper than performance style. The two women came from different acting traditions. They carried different notions of what discipline on a television set should look like. And they apparently never found a way to reconcile those contrasting philosophies across 7 years of working together side by side. McClanahan was privately allied more closely with Arthur than with White in the interpersonal dynamics of the cast. Casting director Joel Thurm later wrote about his experiences on the show. He described how both Arthur and McClanahan had expressed strong negative feelings about White, including language that McClanahan reportedly used directly in conversations with him. The source of that antagonism, according to Thurm, was partly tied to how White treated Estelle Getty once Getty began struggling with memory issues on set. What happened next changed everything for one of them. Getty, who played Dorothy's sharp-tongued mother Sophia, suffered from severe stage fright throughout the production. According to McClanahan, Getty would become almost unreachable on filming days as anxiety overtook her. She would write lines on her hand to manage the panic, a strategy that became necessary as her memory challenges worsened. Writer Stan Zimmerman later discussed the production environment in his book The Girls, From Golden to Gilmore. He revealed that only a small circle of insiders understood that Getty was quietly dealing with early-onset dementia during the later years of the show's run. Most of the crew simply assumed her struggles were related to exhaustion or an active social life, not a neurological condition quietly advancing beneath the surface. The one significant backstage confrontation that crossed from cold tension into open conflict happened during the third season filming of the Christmas episode. Crew members and writers heard shouting from backstage and moved cautiously to see what was happening. Arthur and White had broken into a full argument in a way that had never occurred before and never repeated itself afterward. The resolution came not through conversation but through a piece of improvised humor from the stagehands. They replaced the prop calendar being filmed in that episode with photographs of the male crew dressed in outrageous costumes. The shared laughter that followed temporarily dissolved the tension and allowed the group to move forward. McClanahan described the cast's ability to find comedy in pressure as one of the genuine strengths they shared, even when relationships were strained outside the performance itself. And that's when the show's true ambition came into focus. Beneath the personal conflicts and interpersonal friction, there existed a larger truth about what the Golden Girls was attempting to accomplish on American television. McClanahan's reflections on that mission reveal how seriously she took the show's cultural weight. When the Golden Girls premiered in the fall of 1985, no network had attempted anything quite like it. The series, created by writer Susan Harris and produced for NBC, centered 4 women over the age of 50 living together in Miami. It used that domestic setting to explore subjects that primetime television had largely avoided. Menopause. Ageism. The AIDS crisis. Sexual harassment. Homelessness. Domestic violence. LGBTQ relationships. And the complex realities of aging in America. That ambition was not accidental. Harris had been pushing television toward more honest social territory since her earlier work on Maude and Soap. The Golden Girls became her most sustained and successful attempt. McClanahan understood that Blanche Devereaux occupied a genuinely subversive position in the cultural landscape of the 1980s. A woman in her 50s or 60s openly pursuing romance, taking pleasure in her attractiveness, and speaking freely about her desire for intimacy ran directly against what mainstream entertainment was willing to portray about older women. The character pushed back against the assumption that women past a certain age had no claim to sensuality or desire. McClanahan described admiring Blanche for that very quality, seeing in the character something brave about refusing to shrink.